Hello, welcome to the discussion series called Us Against Hunger. My name is Femi Oke. I am your moderator for the next 1 hour. This discussion series looks at some of the main reasons people are still hungry around the world. Today, climate crisis and how it impacts hunger and food security or food insecurity. Standing by, we have three brilliant panelists who really understand that connection between climate crisis and hunger. Time to meet your panel. Hello, Gernot. Hello, Laura. Hello, Hindou. So good to have you in the conversation today.
Climate drives hunger in two ways, really. I mean, first, this is probably what is already well known through the media. There are these extreme events such as droughts, storms, floods. These cause widespread losses and damages to food systems all over the world. This includes the US, Europe, Africa, Asia. These extreme events wipe out harvests, they destroy storage facilities, interrupt water, energy supply, prevent access to markets. And these climate extremes often require humanitarian assistance to save lives. But a second way in which climate drives hunger is sometimes less visible because it does not always require big humanitarian operations. These are the more creeping variations and stresses, such as more irregular rainfall, changing onsets and offsets of the seasons, or rising salinity in soils and groundwater, when pests and disease patterns shift, when you have growing heat stress in livestock. These stresses, they do not create big humanitarian disasters, but they put households into a much more vulnerable place. So that when even a smaller shock happens, and that is no matter where it comes from, it can be from COVID, it can be an economic shock, it can be another smaller seasonal, maybe climate shock, that can already lead to a food crisis then.
Sometimes it's a lot more subtle. It's just the weather patterns that change slightly. So, for example, in Guatemala, it's very typical that there is a period of the year that it's called canicula, has an interesting name. But it's normally about 2 weeks into the growing season where there is no rain. And it's fine if there is 2 weeks, but sometimes these 2 weeks turn into 4 weeks. And that is enough to destroy the whole harvest. And therefore, people have nothing to eat. And so this just leads so many of them to desperate measures, including migration, a topic that we're talking about a lot. But when people have nothing to eat, when they have no harvest, they can't sell, they can't trade, what are the alternatives?
Hindou, if you take us to Chad and you were going to take us around, what example would you show us? Who would you introduce us to help us understand that connection between the climate crisis and hunger?
Absolutely right. So when you come with me over to Chad, who is the country in the middle of the Sahel, landlocked country, but we have an incredible ecosystem between desert, savannas, and the tropical forest. So my people, who are the nomadic pastoralists, indigenous communities, is still some of them 100% nomadic, living from one place to another one, following the rain, following the pastures and the water. So that directly connected with the food, life, and livelihood that we have. And when you are not able to feed your families, your dignity is under threat, because the food is the first things that you need for your family to secure. And when your family is there, cannot eat, you cannot just stay there. So the alternative is either you have to leave your community to become a migrant, internal or international migrant, or other you have to face the terror groups and then join or not join them in order to save your family and to save the food.
We might have learned from our father to plant the first seed of maize when we feel the first drop of rain within the first 2 weeks of the onset of the rains. But now we plant, we have maybe 2 days of rain, and then we have 6 to 8 weeks of a dry spell. So I would wanna maybe know from Hindou how she experiences this in Chad, but in how far does she see the current situation differently, in the sense that these variations are becoming stronger, more extreme, and put also traditional knowledge into a certain, it restrains options for people.
So what's happening, I can tell you firstly, in my peoples, there is no TV, there is no electricity, so there is no weather forecast or whatever. So we are all relying in the nature and in what nature can give us as information in order to survive, in order to have our food. And nature is our supermarket. That's what I used to say. And nature is our pharmacy. And it is also our fridge, because we can dry up the food and conserve it for the next coming season. So it is so important for us to learn from nature. This is how we get connected so deeply with our environment. Even there is climate change, even there is extreme weather events, but we are resilient and we adapt our knowledge to what is changed. Otherwise, we cannot survive.
We see people, if there is a recurrent drought, like we had over the past 5 years, for example, with Gernot, we were talking a lot about how can we find alternatives.
I want to really look at the cost, the human cost of the climate crisis and the financial cost of the climate crisis. I'm going to take you to Honduras to meet Marlene and her family.
Hacer lo que puedo para luchar, seguir luchando por mis hijos. Que uno de padre prefiere que los hijos coman que uno no. Gracias a Dios, el día que ustedes nos trajeron la ración, para qué yo me sentí feliz, porque es como que me haya caído del cielo. No tenía nada para ellos.
So very often when we talk about solutions and resilience building, we focus on 3 elements. The first one has already, I think, been set up by Hindou very nicely. We work with nature. We help people restore degraded landscapes and turn these landscapes into natural buffers against climate shocks. The second one is we help them anticipate climate problems, basically forecast what is on the cards in the next season, in the next year. And the third one is we try to build social and financial safety nets for the most vulnerable. So restoring, anticipating, and protecting.
All right, so I want to show you an example of resilience in action.
wanted to have just an emergency response and full stop the next of the day, we have to struggle again. We wanted to have the long term. When I'm seeing those men and women in the video, I'm feeling so proud and I'm feeling so good because they know how to manage the land. They are engineers of those fragile ecosystem. So if they just push them a little bit with the financial support, with the training, or with the materials, or with the weather forecast that can add to their own traditional knowledge, they can turn this land into a dreams for them children. They will turn it into a living place for the entire community.
Panel, I want us to focus the last few minutes of our discussion on what do we want our audience to do? What should we be doing? Because we promised a conversation connecting climate crisis with hunger and solutions, and now we're going to give them an assignment. What should that assignment be, Gernot?
My assignment would be, please, let's not celebrate Earth Day only on the 22nd of April. Let's have Earth Day on every day we have a meal. We can, for example, become more aware about the environmental and carbon footprint of our food choices. We can avoid food waste.
I'd like to have the resources and those who can really invest and help us invest on finding and addressing the root causes of this problem, to help us doing that, to help us work with the women, help us establish this microinsurance, help us in funding some of the projects that can really change the story of so many lives, so many children in Guatemala who can move from being chronically malnourished to really having a hope and being able to fulfill their dreams in their communities, in their homes, without having to go and start thinking about how they're going to migrate.
My call also will be to all the young peoples there. You can do it. Just to fix your objective. And you can do it. You can be an activist for every right that you wanted to have, because I did it while being in indigenous communities. You can also do it. And my other call is we have to know how to live in harmony with nature. If you do not respect nature, you are harming yourself. Protect nature, respect nature, and nature will respect you back. We cannot talk about human rights without talking about environment rights, because those both going together. Right to food, it is right to access to land. Right to food, it is right to development. Right to food, it is right also to live in a decent place. If you have empty stomach, you cannot think to going to school or healing yourself.
Thank you, Hindou. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Gernot. Thank you, fabulous discussion audience. I see you on social media. We were watching you and bringing in some of your comments and questions. Really appreciate you doing that. Thank you for joining us today. Take care, everybody.